I'm not sure if any of you were here for the original VR World Congress when it was actually called Southwest VR in this very room, so we returned to our roots. A speaker took to the stage and showed an amazing technology which then caused an immediate stampede to his booth afterwards, which almost derailed the conference. It's an amazing technology, but I guess now, I won't blow what it is, I'll let him do that. Last time we saw it, it was a working example, shall we say, and it's become increasingly tangible. So from Ultrahaptics, I just want to welcome, if you don't know what Ultrahaptics is, you are in for a treat, and if you do know, you should be excited for the return of, have I bigged you up enough now, Tom? Tom Carter from Ultrahaptics. Cheers, mate.
Cool, thanks. Hello, everybody. So, yeah, I'm Tom from Ultrahaptics. We have a technology that lets you feel things in the air without touching anything. So we did cause a little bit of a stampede last time. They've pushed us back and given us a bit more space for the demos this year that I'll talk to you about a bit later. But what I really want to talk about today is the importance of the sense of touch in VR, what you get from the sense of touch and why you're going to need it when creating really cool, immersive VR experiences. So I sat down to think about creating this presentation. How do I say it? How do I pitch it? And the starting point has to be, well, surely the sense of touch increases the immersion of VR, makes you feel more like you're really there, makes it feel more real. And it turns out that's actually pretty easy to prove, even without some of the amazing visual effects that we just saw. All you need is a very quick YouTube search, and you can prove that that's definitely true.
Uh-oh. Ah! What is wrong with you?
I spent a long time watching these videos. So you can find these all over YouTube. Just search for jump scare videos of people in VR doing horror games, and then somebody grabs them from the outside. The best are when they really time it well, so something jumps out at you in the game, and you actually get grabbed. And that moment really takes it from you sort of raised heart rate, being scared in a game, but still in the back of your mind knowing it's not real, to all of a sudden losing that safety net, that feeling that it's not that it really isn't real. You just sat in your living room and it makes it real. And that sort of breaks that safety net that you have. So it's kind of interesting, but it's really a little bit of a cheap shot, and kind of actually undervalues the real importance of touch and what you get from it. So to delve into that, I've got to go back a number of years to when I was growing up, and this was the first mobile phone that I got, Nokia 3310. So I got one of these, and it completely revolutionized my life. I was now able to text and call my friends. I could play Snake. This was sort of completely changed my world. But when I got it, I took it out of the box. It then actually comes with a lot of learning of just how to use it as an interface. So this is actually a screenshot from, I believe it's page 134 of the instruction manual for the Nokia 3310 that shipped in the box. I found it, I got it out, I read it again. It's really good. I'm surprised it's not become a classic. So to lock the phone, you press the button with the blue line, which here is the menu button, and then the star button really quickly. But then to turn the lock off, you press the button with the blue line, which is now called the unlock button, not the menu button, and then you press the star button very quickly again. If you want to get to your speed dial settings, you press the menu, then you press 6, and then you press 1. There was a lot of this sort of effort to learn what the shortcuts were and how to use the phone because of the interface. It's a sort of static array of buttons. And we've learned that for smartphones, and we've progressed it to touchscreens, so this interface can actually change and help you learn and understand what it is you're supposed to be doing. But we're looking at a relatively similar challenge that's facing us in virtual reality. VR is way more complicated than a Nokia 3310, and so the challenge of how do we interact in VR and how do we operate in there is huge, and something we really need to put a lot of focus onto. And of course, VR is not just about controls or pressing buttons or moving dials. It's a real free space that allows you to interact and move around and do all sorts of things. So we can't have these systems where it actually sort of tethers you to one place, and the feedback that you get has got to be really fast and responsive. But also VR is able to create very powerful, very human experiences. And you can get to the stage where you can actually believe that the person sat opposite you is really there. Some of the graphics you just saw, if you're still here in the previous talk, showing the difference in graphics between the movie and the rendered version now is unbelievable, stunning. And so you're getting to this place of having photorealistic people. And when you get to these scenarios, you're going to want to reach out and touch and interact with your hands, whether that's objects in the environment, whether that's people. If you have a person there, generally, a lot of people, you will reach out and touch and interact. If you've ever sat in the arrivals lounge in an airport and watched people getting off their planes to meet somebody, every time they meet, they actually touch in some way, shake their hands, pat them on the back, give them a hug if it's a family member. So if we don't have this interaction and the sense of touch, then effectively we're going to become that awkward guy at the airport who meets somebody and just kind of goes, hey, and then doesn't really do the handshake. And we can see this is true because I'm sure pretty much everybody here has seen this experience when somebody's in VR reaching out and trying to touch the virtual stuff. You can see this happen so often. There's something there, they're amazed by it, their brain sort of believes it, and they go like this. They know they can't actually touch it and feel it, but people still try. And really that got me thinking, why do people do that? Why, when you know you've got a headset on your head, why do you still go like this and try and touch it? And even if it was a real physical object, why would you reach your hand out and try and grab it? And the answer is actually that touch is really important just for exploring and understanding the world around us. So we've got a challenge for you. Here's a spot the difference game. There are two pictures. See if you can see the difference between the two pictures. So the answer is that the image on the right-hand side there, the guy's holding the glass, and the image on the left-hand side, he's not actually touching it at all. So this hand is completely not touching the glass, and that one is actually grasping it and could lift it up. And the reason you can't tell the difference is because, as humans, our eyes are stuck to the front of our head, about this far apart. And so when you reach your hand out to pick something up, perspective kicks in, and you can't tell the difference between small movements forwards or backwards or side to side. You'd need sort of eyes on stalks to come and look from different angles and get a wider aperture. So just for the basic interactions of picking things up and moving them around, we're entirely reliant on our sense of touch to know, have I contacted it? Should I close my hands? Will it come with me if I pick it up? And in the real world, this is the difference between having a glass of water and knocking it all over the table. But it's not just to compensate for your loss of visual accuracy at distance. Also, your brain actually processes touch 1.7 times faster than it processes visuals. So if you show somebody or give somebody a piece of information through visuals, it's not far off twice as difficult in time and also sort of mental load for them to process and digest that information and work out what it is. So we actually rely on touch just for this really quick information feedback to us while we're just moving around in the space. And then also, the touch is really important for human communication and building trust and collaboration. So there's a study that's been conducted on the NBA, so basketball league in America. And what they found was really interesting. The teams at the beginning of the season who actually physically touched, contacted more, ended up at the top of the league table at the end of the season, and the teams who contacted less ended up near the bottom of the league. There's a pretty strong correlation between this. So high fives, back pats, this kind of stuff. And it follows the trend of research that shows that human contact helps build trust and collaboration, and so they can play together better as a team. So you have exploring the world and actually being able to physically interact and move objects around, and then also this real human element of building up these essential aspects that we take for granted when we're interacting with people in day-to-day life. So that's why I think that touch is really, really important for virtual reality and for life in general. And I think that in the future, we will look at immersive experiences as being standard, that they have some form of sense of touch, some kind of haptic feedback mechanism for them. We saw back with my Nokia 3310 that ended up getting killed by the touchscreen because of these interaction problems. And I think that haptics and the sense of touch is going to be as important for these immersive virtual reality experiences as the touchscreen was for smartphones breaking out of this early stage and becoming what they are today. So that's what really drives us in our mission and what we're doing, to create this sensation of touch so that you can feel what you interact with in these virtual spaces. So we actually have a technology that uses ultrasound. So we project these sound waves through the air and onto your hand and use them to vibrate your skin in order to give you feeling. So we can create different sort of textures and shapes and objects, and actually it gets really great reactions when everybody's playing around with it and trying it. We've used it to create buttons and sliders. We've used it to create feedback for gestures. We've created 2D shapes, interacting with 3D objects, and even sensations that don't exist in the real world. So these guys are sticking their hands through a force field that they can't see. This is actually downstairs in the museum. We set it up as an exhibit, and this kid nearly smashed my screen. But it creates these magical experiences where you can actually reach out and contact the digital content. So we've spent the last 3 years, mostly since the last time we were here, working on integrating touchless controls into cars, home appliances, consumer electronics products. The idea being that you can reach out and interact with the products without touching them, but actually feel what you're doing. And it's going very well. We have a huge number of products moving through, one of which that we can talk about. This was shown off at CES in Las Vegas in January. This is a concept car made by Bosch, one of the big automotive tier 1 suppliers. I really like this. It's kind of like a Blade Runner-esque futuristic car with these screens everywhere, and then you can control the center console using this touchless panel in the middle, which means that you don't take your eyes off the road, so it improves driver alertness and keeps you more awake and attentive. So this technology is going to roll out in a lot of products over the coming years, but there's also a lot of NDAs, so we can't talk about too many of them. So actually more interesting is to go and talk about some of the work that other people are doing using our technology. We've got a large number now of partners in academic institutions and sort of interesting groups doing cool stuff. And I just want to talk about a couple of them. The first one is Dr. Mariana Obrist. She's a researcher at the University of Sussex, and she's been conducting research on actually conveying emotion through mid-air haptic feedback. So she was using our technology to actually convey emotion, and kind of crazily, it actually works. So depending on how you project this feedback to the user, you can actually make them feel happy or sad. Not just completely manipulate their mental state, but they know that that is a happy feeling or a sad feeling. You can push the feeling of emotion through these tactile sensations just in the same way that you could do it with, say, voice if I screamed or shouted versus talked softly. You can do the same kind of things with haptics. And that's really quite fascinating for me because that is a huge power when you're creating these experiences to have another channel available to you as the content designers to feed this kind of emotional information through to the user. The other one I wanted to talk about was an installation that a group of artists in London did and installed in the Tate Britain in London. So this was a new way of experiencing art and adding extra layers of sensory information. It was called the Tate Sensorium. And the concept was that you'd stand in front of a painting, and rather than just blandly sort of staring at the painting and only observing it with your eyes, they added extra senses. So in this one, it's a painting called Full Stop. This painting is about 8 foot tall. It is enormous, and you have this huge black dot in the middle. And you stand there looking at it. You have the headphones on, and you get binaural audio. You have the lights kind of dim in and out and fade up and down. And you have your hand in this sort of glowing green pod there, and you receive tactile sensations on your hands that are synchronized with the audio and the light. So you can almost, when the audio sort of goes in and out, you can and the sensation on your hand does a similar effect, you can almost get the sense of perspective warping and this dot growing bigger and smaller on the wall. It's a really unbelievable experience. And it was very successful there as well. They sold out every day and actually ended up extending the run for 3 times longer than it was supposed to go on. So very excited about that and bringing new different ways to experience this kind of art and attractions that you can go and see. So then pulling this fully across to virtual reality, where I see this going in the not too distant future, is for a first step, creating immersive experiences. So these kind of attractions and installations that are starting to roll out in arcades, theme parks, cinemas, where you can actually enter a virtual world and experience part of a story as one of the characters in the stories, are amazingly powerful experiences. And they're made even more so believable if you can reach out and actually contact and interact with the digital content. If you can have the characters reach out and touch you, if you can have a legion of spiders or creepy crawlies run across your hands, or if you can cast magic spells or feel fireballs flying out of your hands. It's going to make some phenomenal experiences. Similarly, in enterprise and the workplace, there's a lot of potential and indeed traction now for VR and AR bringing three-dimensional content out of the display, out of your two-dimensional display, so you can actually see it in 3 dimensions while you're working on it. I was actually in California pretty recently speaking to the team at Meta, one of the leading augmented reality headset companies. They were telling a story about how they're going to get rid of every single monitor from the desk of every single employee in their entire company by July of this year. And that will all be done in augmented reality. And at first I thought, wow, that seems kind of crazily optimistic, but they're sticking to it. They do seem to be rolling that out. And the reasons are pretty clear. Essentially, as human beings, we're pretty terrible at spatial projection. It's one of the things our brains finds difficult to do and challenging, seeing a 2D image and working out what it would be like in 3D and how you could rotate it. So if you can pull that content that a lot of people work on every day, be it CAD models, designs for new movies or games, or even just data sets that would be better visualized in 3D, if you can pull them out of the display and actually see them, then you will work better on them, you'll get better results, you'll work faster. And the next step to that is actually being able to directly touch them, feel them, manipulate them, and interact with them. So that's what we're working on at the moment, creating these new workspaces of the future where you'll be able to directly touch, feel, and manipulate your content. Finally, as I've already mentioned, this potential of human communication over distance in VR or AR, where you can actually talk to family or friends or business colleagues, and rather than having to look at them on a small screen, they can be there right with you. So if you're traveling on a business trip, rather than just having to sort of wave at your daughter through a little screen, you could actually reach out and touch her hand. This is going to be a big change in how I think a lot of communication and interaction happens remotely between humans. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we've come so far already, and there's so many exciting things that are going to be revealed in the coming months. But we brought a lot of what we've created with us here today. So there's a booth in the demo tent, which you should definitely come and check out. We have a number of demos. You can try the force field from the video, but you can also have a go at training to become a wizard and cast magic spells and feel lightning bolts and various other spells flying out of your hands as you do. So it's really good fun. You should definitely come and check it out. So finally, what I'd like to leave everybody with today is just a thought on how much you actually get from the sense of touch just in your daily life as you move around and interact. So just think for the rest of the day about what you actually get from a handshake when you meet somebody, or how you actually get something out of your pocket, or even just how you go about turning the light switch off before you go to bed. Because we're working very hard on creating this technology and making it available for everybody, but we know that the best experiences and the best ideas and the best creations are ultimately going to come from you guys and everybody out in the community creating these kind of experiences. So thanks very much.